Hey everyone, how's it going? Forrest here again with another installment of my complete analysis of all 389 Bach chorale harmonizations. Sorry I have a little bit of a sore throat today, but thankfully the chorales aligned with my sickness and gave me a short chorale today, halt uns Herr bei deinem Wort, which translates to preserve us, Lord, with your word. All in all, very straightforward chorale. Not too many tricks and turns going on. Everything was very straightforward to analyze, which is very much appreciated after the last 2 days of incredibly long and somewhat difficult chorales harmonically. So let's just hop right into the analysis actually. So we're in the key of G minor. We start on G minor and we cadence on G major, but you know that Bach in minor chorales, he uses the Picardy third to cadence on major. More often than not, I've found. We have some passing tones in the tenor and the soprano before we get another G minor triad. Just the voices have rotated and the bass leaps up an octave. Passing seventh in the alto. We then have C, C, E flat, and A natural. That is an A diminished triad over C, or 2-6. We have some passing tones going on in the soprano and the tenor again, like we did it during the first beat. And then we have D, A, D, and F sharp. That's a D major triad in root position, which is a 5 chord. He then leaps up a minor 7th in the bass, turning it into a 7 chord briefly. And then we have B flat, D, and G. That's our tonic triad, G minor in first inversion. We then have 4 passing tones, which is always like a red light going off in my head to analyze this as a passing chord. We have A, C, F sharp, and C. This is in fact an F sharp diminished triad in first inversion, which is 7-6. We then have G, D, G, and B flat. That's a tonic triad in root position. Then I have some more non-chord tones. We leap down a 5th in the bass and we step up in the tenor. That turns this kind of into a passing C minor 7 chord, right? C, E flat, G, and B flat, spelled in ascending order. That's kind of rare. But yeah, we could say that's a passing 4-7 chord. Might as well. And then we have B, A, F sharp. Sorry, D, A, F sharp, and A. It's a root position D major triad, which is a 5 chord. We leap up to D here. This is a chord tone. And then we cadence on G minor. Our first cadence is a perfect authentic cadence. Okay, looking ahead, we have a half cadence, still in the key of G minor. Immediately after the tonic triad, we get a rotation of the voices, still a G minor triad though. We then get A, C, F, and C. That is an F major triad in first inversion, so that would be a flat 7 chord, flat 7-6. You might also analyze this as 5-6 of 3. I've learned it both ways, so I usually offer both analyses when I run into 7 chords, or flat 7 chords to be more specific. We then have F, F, A, and C. Interesting, we get a respelling of the chord, so we get some vocal rotation, but it just turns it into root position before we go to B flat, F, B flat, and D, which is our 3 chord. You might even make an argument that we briefly go to the key of B flat here and say that the 7 chord is also 5-6, and then we have 5-3, and then we have 1 before we go back to the key of G minor. We have a passing tone in the bass, G, G, D, and B flat. That's our tonic triad. It's kind of interesting to have a 3 going to a 1 directly, but they are related by 2 tones, and I really look at this 1 chord as, in the larger scheme of things, a passing chord, even though there is quite a bit of movement in the alto, but really it's just sort of passing from 3 to 1, I'd say. We also get a passing tone in the, these are actually 2 passing 7ths. This is the 7th of 3, and this is the 7th of 1. Okay, then we have E flat, G, G, and C. That is C minor over E flat, which is 4-6. We get some neighbor tones in the bass and the alto. that is D, G, B flat, and C. Not really an analyzable chord using Bach's harmonic vocabulary. We then have E flat, C, A, and C. So depending on how you hear this chord, you might hear this chord as a 2-6-4 chord, which is very unusual. You don't usually see two chords in second inversion, especially when they're a triad. In seventh chords, if we see a 2-7 chord, it's not unheard of to see a 2-4-3 chord, but 2-6-4, this is pretty unprecedented. I'm going to make the argument that, actually, can I make that argument? I was going to say that maybe this A is an accented non-chord tone, but we do get a D going on here as well, so that would be E flat, D, G, and C, and that's not really an analyzable triad. But I had it in my notes as maybe you could hear this as a 4-6-5 chord. But all in all, that A is very much present, and then the voices, or the tenor kind of interrupts this being heard as a 4 chord. So I guess this is in fact a 2-6-4 chord. Kind of interesting. E flat, C, A, and C. Yeah, there it is. Passing tone, a very brief passing tone in the tenor, and a passing tone in the alto before we cadence on 5. That's what makes this a half cadence. So 2-6-4, that's pretty interesting. Okay, going ahead to the next cadence, it's a perfect authentic cadence in the key of B flat major, which is our relative major. And I think we modulate straight away. 5 goes to G minor, G, B flat, G, and D, which is our tonic triad, but I'm going to go ahead and call it 6 in the key of B flat as well, as our pivot chord. We then have C, C, G, and E flat. Depending on how you hear this, I've been consistent in calling these accented non-chord tones, calling the G the accented non-chord tone here, and calling these 7-6 chords as A, C, and E flat spells A diminished in first inversion, and A diminished in first inversion is usually the chord that bridges one chord and the tonic. But you might very well hear this as C minor as well, so I'll offer that analysis. Sorry, not C diminished. That'd be very interesting, some mode mixture, but C minor rather. It's not unheard of for Bach to use mode mixture, but it's relatively uncommon in the chorales. I usually analyze anything that sounds remotely mode mixture-y as a modulation. Alright, and then we have B flat, F, B flat, and D. There's our tonic triad, and usually these progressions are pretty straightforward. It is a 7 chord, bridging the two. Then we have a passing tone in the melody. We then have A, F, C, and F with a passing 7th in the melody again. That's F major over A, which is our 5 chord in first inversion. We then have B flat, F, D, B flat, and D, another tonic triad in root position, pretty much the same as the chord we see here, but the tenor leaps up an octave. We then have F, E flat, A, and C. That's another F major chord, but this time it's a dominant 7 chord, so 5-7. We have some neighbor tones or some other, actually they're all technically 3 neighbor tones. This one's more of a suspension though, but we'll mark it anyways. F, D, B flat, and D. We have a bit of a 1-6-4 chord here, B flat major over F, so B flat in second inversion. Then we have F, E flat, and C. The E flat turns into C here, and the B flat turns into A here, so we have a 4-3 suspension over the bass, but really this is just another big 5-7 chord. We can bridge these two together. Pretty interesting cadential formula here. I haven't seen this before with the 1-6-4 happening on the weak beat. And then we cadence on 1, which is B flat, D, F, and B flat. Alright, we see F sharp in the next measure, on the next beat. We also see it in the next measure, so I wasn't wrong, but I meant the next beat. So we'll go ahead and say that this is our pivot chord to modulate back to G minor. And this will be our 3 chord. We have F sharp, D, A, and D. That's D major over F sharp, which is 5-6, because D is our dominant. We then have G, D, G, and B flat, which is our tonic triad, G minor in root position. Bass leaps down an octave. We then get A, C, G, and C. I reckon this G is an accented non-chord tone, and it's actually F sharp diminished over A, which is 7-6. Pretty consistent with the 7-6 chords we've seen so far. Like right here, bridging a tonic chord, or some type of tonic chord, like here in the key of B flat, and here is a passing chord in between two tonics. So the next chord we have is B flat, D, G, and B flat, keeping that hypothesis about his use of 7-6 chords true. 7-6 chords are typically used to bridge the gap between, in a lot of cases, two tonics, but there's always a tonic on the other end. Passing tone in the bass. We then have D, D, F sharp. Remember, the F sharp carries over into A, which is just a root position D major triad. Passing seventh in the tenor. And then we have E flat, B flat, G, and G. That's E flat major in root position. So we have our first deceptive progression of the chorale, which is interesting. Then we have a neighbor tone, or not really a neighbor tone, like an escape tone, I think is what it's called. And then we have something that looks like a passing tone, but this is actually a chord tone. We have C, B flat, E flat, and G. That is a C minor 7 chord, so we could say that that's happening in passing. It's not the first time we've had one happen in passing. So I think there's sort of a relationship between the first cadence and this cadence via that chord progression, except instead of 6 we get 1 here. But the skip or the leap down into the bass seems significant. We then have D, A, D, and F sharp. That's our root position D major triad, which is our 5 chord. We have a passing figure here where what makes this final cadence sound really interesting is the fact that the melodic sixth, like the raised, we have a B natural going up to C, then back to B natural, gives it a very modal sound. This B natural under this F sharp is it's interesting. Goodness, sorry, that was quite a stutter. It's interesting that we get this formula where the B natural gets introduced and then we cadence. It just has a particular sound about it that makes it sound different from other chorales that have a Picardy third in the final cadence. But remember, we're cadencing on uppercase 1 because it's a major triad. That being said, that's today's chorale. I'm happy that it was shorter just because of the fact that my voice is already starting to give out if you can't already hear it. 7 chords are still operating in the way that we expect, more specifically diminished 7th chords. And I think between the use of B natural here and the 2-6-4 chord here in the second cadence, we have a couple of interesting harmonic quirks about this chorale that make it unique. We have a 6-4 chord being used as not even really a passing chord. It's like kind of like a, can't even make the argument really that it's a pedal chord either, because it's not being sustained over a longer period of time. But all in all, I think it's hard to be super particular with chords when there's counterpoint going on, and every voice, the inner voices are doing their own thing here, which makes the harmony kind of hard to discern. But that being said, straightforward analysis today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for continuing to support the channel, and I look forward to tomorrow's analysis. I hope you take care.